Constructing your life is about much more than just building a bank account. Each week, join real estate entrepreneur and mindset coach Austin Linney as he interviews guests who are constructing their dream lives and impacting the world around them on a daily basis. If you're an entrepreneur or wanting to start a business, or you just want to hear motivating stories of how others have overcome the odds, you are in the right place. And now for your host, Austin Linney.
Guys, welcome back to Construct Your Life. This is Austin Linney here, and I have the gentleman who's got the most hair in the real estate business, Mr. Jonatan Barbera. Oh, damn it. That's your brother. I'm sorry. I forgot. How you doing, my man?
What's going on? Always with the hair jokes.
Dude, I've been trying to add a little, when you're on 50 Zoom calls a week, you have to add a little spice into them, So what I like to do, I had the pleasure of going on John's podcast last week or the week before, and it was the longest conversation I've ever had on a podcast. So I'm interested to see this one. So he's coming on mine. So you start your story where you want to, and then we'll kind of go from there.
Sure. Well, I was born in Argentina, so I actually speak fluent Spanish. It's something that always throws a lot of people off when I start speaking Spanish. They're like, why is it that I understand what he's saying? So that's always fun. My parents decided to move to the US, landed in New York, grew up there, started construction, was working construction most of my life. So once I realized I knew how to build a house, I knew how to fix a house, I figured out, maybe I should learn how to buy a house. And at that point, I kind of just started teaching myself how to do all this, how to understand how to buy houses, how to do investing. And after learning a little bit on my own, I realized that New York sucked for doing any kind of real estate and business. So I picked up and moved down to San Antonio. So I've been here for about 7-8 years, started my business, started wholesaling, and just built relationships, grew from there, been flipping houses. We have about 12 rentals right now, 4-5 new constructions. We have about 7 current projects running right now. So, the move worked.
Okay. Well, I want to unpack some stuff here because there's a lot of people like New York is what New York is, but there's a lot of people that wouldn't make that move. Right. And it's not like that. Like you have a family, like your brother came with, like, it's not like, hey, it was just like John decided to get up and like move to, like, it was a big deal. I'm curious the process of deciding San Antonio, first of all. And then second of all, how long was it talked about before you decided to move markets? Because a lot of people are stubborn and they won't go where their opportunity is.
Yeah. So I started actually thinking about Texas and San Antonio back in about 2010 because Robert Kiyosaki was always talking about it. So he was always talking about how he was in Texas, he was in San Antonio, buying multifamily, doing all these things. And honestly, I like the mentality that Texas had of more just live and let live, business friendly environment and all of that. And then I just started doing research on after we got hit hard in 2008, right? 2008, I was actually living in Spain I lived there for about 3 years, and we decided to open up a restaurant because tourism was it was insane in Spain. I mean, that's where most of their income comes from. And we opened it up in 2008. We didn't know what was going on. I didn't pay attention to the economy or anything. And all of a sudden, it's like restaurants started shutting down everywhere. Bars. We're like, what the hell is going on? What just happened? And that was our first introduction to, at least my first introduction to the economy and paying attention to that. So when I did my research, I was like, what is an economy? What is a state in a city that's more kind of as recession proof as possible? So I looked at, jobs, policies. Are they business friendly? Are they landlord friendly? Because then that's going to encourage more money to come into the place. Affordability. So when I looked at all those things, Texas was just beaming the whole time. And when I found Texas, I had 3 markets to choose from: Dallas, Austin, and San Antonio. I would not go to Houston just because I hate humidity and just no coastal cities. So out of the 3, Austin and Dallas were red hot based on my market analysis. They were just, the real estate market was insane. So I was like, well, San Antonio is another large metro area it's going to be coming up right behind them. So I'll move there and it'll give me time to kind of catch up, get my foot in the door. And and that's exactly how it worked. I was able to get here and pretty much ride the wave that San Antonio has been on for the last 8 years.
And what advice would you give to any investor or entrepreneur out there? You live by the same creed I do. I don't want to go where the market's hot. I want to go where the market's gonna be hot.
Right.
And that, like, I've never had the capital that other people have. Like, I'm not trying to. I don't want to operate currently. I don't want to operate in the $1 million home space or anything like that. Like, I don't want to walk the tightrope. So what advice would you give to anybody out there that's maybe sitting in Austin, Texas, or a Dallas that's too hot and they want to get started? Like, what advice would you give them to maybe they got to move somewhere?
Yeah. And I mean, the biggest thing is you got to look at affordability, right? That's where everybody searches. You got to look at what's your biggest buyer pool, pretty much what's the biggest pool of business you're going to have. And it's going to be affordability. That's where why people are leaving California, leaving New York. It's gotten too crazy. There's no work. So you got to look for employment. You got to look for affordability. And when you have those metrics lined up, and one of the things that we look at even within San Antonio. So my business partner, John Barr, he actually does the market update for our company. And when we look at the zip codes, we look at, all right, what are the hottest zip codes? So these are the hottest. Then I start looking around those zip codes and around those neighborhoods and around those areas, because when they're red hot, people want to be in proximity because they may not be able to afford it, but they still want to be there, right? And it's the same thing with Austin. Like, people want to be in Austin. It's just not many people can afford to be there. So you're going to start seeing a massive, and you've already been seeing it, but you start seeing a massive expansion down to San Antonio and all the cities in between, because it's an hour drive. And now, as we see more work from home, hybrid employment, that you work from home some days, then a little bit of days in the office, that commuting, it's going to make more sense for somebody to come to San Antonio, buy a $300,000 home that gets you a hell of a nice home, versus in Austin, you need probably $500,000 or $700,000, and you're competing with everybody else for a starter home, right? So those are the things I look at affordability. I look at kind of where the market is going and the shifts that it's making.
And one of the things that me and you probably spend 90% of our time talking about is doing business the right way, doing it with the right attitude, and making sure that we're taking care of people. And I don't like to ask what works right. I like to ask what works wrong, because everybody talks about what's right. I want to talk about wrong. What do you think are some of the biggest mistakes that entrepreneurs or wholesalers or investors, just in general, people getting started out in the business, what do you think are the biggest mistakes they make?
By far, I think the biggest mistake is that they think they can do it off the bat on their own with no knowledge, right? And I think that is the biggest, that's the most deceiving thing about real estate, because it has such a low barrier to entry, because you can wake up tomorrow and say, hey, I'm a real estate investor. And you are, right? I mean, for all intents and purposes, the same as like you call yourself an entrepreneur. It's like you can call yourself whatever the hell you want. Now, the difference is, are you really one? Are you really an investor? And flipping houses, wholesaling, buy and hold, everything, it requires its time for education, for knowledge, to understand the market, understand the process. And a lot of people, they read a book or they watch an HGTV show, and then all of a sudden it's like, I got it. I understand. Subway tiles, got it. And it's like, no, there's a lot more involved. Especially when I meet people that have some money, not a lot of money, some money, and they say, oh, I want to start flipping houses. Like, I understand the words are easy to say, but you got to understand that rehabbing a house is not easy. You don't understand when you start taking shit down, what's behind a wall. Then inspections come, permits come. Your contractors that said that they were going to do all this, all of a sudden start giving you change orders, charging you more, cutting corners, not doing things. They end up leaving the job, not showing up. You paid too much up front for a contractor, and they just left with your money. And these are all things that it doesn't matter what book you read or what you do. like experience cannot be read or taught. Like it has to be experienced, right? You have to earn that experience, and that comes with time. So I see this across the board. I buy and hold investors. I mean, and not to call a guy out, but we have an investor that we've been kind of mentoring and helping out. He's from California, and he wanted to sell property to me. And he says, I need to offload it. So I went to look at it, and I was like, man, after running all the numbers, he's probably going to lose about $80,000 on this house, if not more. And it's like, you bought wrong. You hired the wrong contractor. You did everything wrong. And now you're going to lose your ass on a deal, I mean, we talk real money. So this is not a solo sport. This is definitely a team sport. I always tell people you got to get with people that understand what they're doing.
Yeah, I mean that's interesting to me that he could lose that much money in this market, which is really crazy. And so how do they combat against not doing the right things? Like what are the actions that they should take when they're getting started, right? I mean, like you have a dude that's a close personal friend of both of us, Adrian Salazar, who worked with y'all for a while, and he's doing great, because he was coachable and he was a hard worker. Like, what do they need to do to get started? Where should they be focused on?
Well, I think you said it right there, right? Adrian was coachable and continues to be coachable. Every time he comes to San Antonio, he comes by the office and we talk business, we talk systems, we talk everything. And he's always willing to learn, always willing to, ask questions. And that is something that a lot of people, I don't know if it's an ego thing or greed, but I tell people, you got to partner if you want to flip houses, right? And you got to partner with people that are successful at flipping houses. Yes, this does mean you're going to split the profit, but understand that part. You're going to split the profit. Okay. There's still profit, right? Versus you go for it on your own. Now you're absorbing 100% of the loss, right? So that is the key point there, is that you got to understand you are splitting profit with somebody that understands what they're doing. And this is in every field. I mean, you want to talk about fix and flips, buy and hold, everything. Work with people that have done it, that have been in there. And yes, you're going to split profit. I understand that's not a sexy thing. And I mean, I believe maybe the issue to this is going back to the earlier question you asked, is another problem people have when they're getting started is that they jump into real estate broke, right? They jump into real estate like, I need to make money right now. Like, whoa, that's just way too quick. What are you expecting here? You just started, nothing. How do you expect to make money right now? So then they end up doing the dumbest shit. They become motivated buyers, right? They become motivated investors, and they end up overpaying. They end up doing all the wrong things because they need money right now. Where I try to tell people, I'm like, get into real estate, and your first year is it has to be learning, and at least your first year has to be all learning, partnering with people, absorbing as much as possible. And that's how I got started.
Yeah, 100%. I think at the end of the day, and I was, somebody asked me the other day, like, what advice could you give? And it sounds so cliche, or it doesn't sound cliche. It sounds stupid for me to say this, but you need to look at your first 3 or 4 houses as practice. That's all it is. If you don't lose money, you win. And I remember I said this on your podcast, and it's something that changed my life. If you look at every next deal as the next best deal of your life, and you realize that it's not a culmination of one deal that's going to make you, it's a combination of the compound effect of multiple deals. And the more tools and advice that you can gain by taking action, you're going to be better served for it. You're going to be more conditioned for it, right? But what's interesting to me is that we live in a society where everybody wants to squeeze the juice out of every profit. And I try to tell these young guys, like, leave some meat on the bone for these big guys. And I promise you, they'll get you paid. Like, here's what I'm trying to talk to. Anybody that has no money, maybe they're a waiter, maybe they're whatever they are, they want something different. Do you know how many stories of guys I've heard that just trade land to builders and developers, and they make tons of money with like no money in the deal. Like they're partnering up. Like there's so many opportunities if you do it the right way, if you're coachable. YouTube has 9 bajillion ways for you to learn real estate. You don't need any money. But that's not sexy. And that's not what everybody wants to do because that's work. And if they would just focus properly, if you started at 20, you could be retired at 28. Like seriously, like, you know, a couple smart moves, cash flow, you know, let's say you live on $3,000 a month. Like, but we create this thing where I need 1,000 units. I need this thing. And I was talking to a friend in Miami this weekend who I was meeting with, who's got a bunch of real estate stuff. Tell me if this rings true. He's like, at the same time, I want all those things. I want none of those things. He's like, and I said the same thing. The same reason I want $1 billion company, I actually don't want any of those things too. It's such a weird dichotomy when you're in the game as long as me and you have been, where you're really trying to decide what type of scale makes sense for you because lifestyle is almost more important than the actual dollar amount.
For sure. And I mean, that was a sacrifice that I believe needs to be made when you're starting off pretty much in any business. You need to sacrifice profit for growth, right? And that's something that we decided to do as partners with John. And we said it to ourselves, we're never going to make a decision based on money. We're going to make a decision based on relationship or systems or growth. Right. But never about the money, because whenever it's about the money, that's where greed steps in. That's when bad moves step in. And that's not something that we want to do. And we left so much meat on the bone because we started wholesaling, which I recommend everybody start wholesaling because of the amount of knowledge you gain. Now, this isn't for you to build a wholesale business. All right.
Well, how does somebody get started in that? In your opinion, which I think can be an amazing way to create capital for low cost.
So the way I would start today, if I was starting all over again, is the biggest thing is build your buyers list, build a quality buyers list. The reason for why I stress this so much is that if you build a quality buyers list, I'm talking about real buyers, people that actually have money or have access to private funds or something that they are constantly buying houses. You build a real buyers list. They are the ones that are going to give you all the education, resources, and everything you're ever going to need to grow in this business. You understand? Those are the buyers. Those buyers are going to, if you go to them and you say, hey, if you pay for the marketing, I'll run all your leads. You understand? And then we'll split maybe a wholesale fee or something, and the deal can go to you. You know, you pay me a finder's fee, whatever it is. That's how I started. And they funded all of our marketing. I started with no money. That's exactly how I did it. But I told them, I was like, in exchange for all this, I want to know, I want to learn. So I learned about subject twos, stopping foreclosures, short sales, wraps, owner finance, analyzing a property, running title work, working with liens. I mean, everything and anything that you could think of, I learned the whole process because I was always looking for that next new way of doing a deal. And all of that time that I spent doing that prepared me to be able to handle anything that comes our way now. I can look at a deal and I create 3 to 4 different exit strategies that, I'm always prepared. If anything goes south, I can get out in any amount of different ways. So I strongly recommend you build a good buyers list through networking, getting out there. I know right now with COVID and everything, it's a little harder, but networking online is not that difficult. You got Facebook groups, you have bigger pockets. I mean, I've been doing it online and I'm still getting deals, so there's definitely ways of doing all this. And that's what I would do. I will get the buyers. Once I build my buyers list, I go to them and I tell them, where do you want houses? They'll tell you the areas to market, and then you go market those areas. And if you need funds, you tell them, hey, are you willing to fund the marketing campaign? And I'll do the work. I will do that in a heartbeat. If somebody comes to me and says, are you willing to market? Hell yes, I need more deals. I'll pay for the marketing because I can afford to do that. You understand? Other new investors, wholesalers, they can't afford it. So you go to the investors that need deals, they will be glad to pay for it because now they're getting great deals. They're able to negotiate them. I mean, you learn everything about structuring and negotiating deals.
Well, what's interesting is I think they've labeled that astro flipping now these days. But basically, long story short, we're building out a course for other podcasts for coaching. And we were like, hey, we spent like an hour doing all these things. And like, then we both stopped and we go, why are we doing this? Like, why are we trying to tell people what they want? We should just ask the people what they want. And so it's an amazing technique. Like, perfect example, like, why am I out there just like, as I call it, pissing in the wind, the Texas saying out here, like, no, I want concentrated effort. So if I have a buyer who wants, duplexes or he wants a single family that's 1,400 square feet, I know exactly what I can look for. And that way I'm not wasting my time. Like, I have a guy who trades large scale multifamily off market, like 100 million and up. And what he does is, let's say he's looking for a property for that client. He knows exactly what they want. And for those 2 hours, he's not looking for any other client's properties. He's only looking for their property. And then in the next 2 hours, he'll look for them. And it just keeps you focused and kind of concentrated and more potent with your time. I think we've become the society of where we think time in the saddle is what makes the sense. No, effective time, potent time, actually concentrated effort is what actually gets the job done. That's why people like you and other people that I know can run multiple businesses, because we can compartmentalize and focus on effective time, not just time working.
Well, I mean, to that, I love partnering. I love partnering because now I'm able to leverage somebody else's time and their resources and their knowledge on whatever that space is. And I'm able to get that time back for myself where I can go do something else. You understand? So I'm all for it. But my mentality is more like, I heard this expression said before, would you rather have 50% of a watermelon or 100% of a grape? Right. So to me, it's like, that's how I look at it, where it's not one deal is going to make you rich. You're not going to kill it on one wholesale deal. You're not going to kill it on one flip and retire. It's the amount of knowledge that you have, the ability that you have, the resources, the resourcefulness that you've developed, the network that you developed, that's going to keep you through all the cycles. One thing I always talk about is that how I'm not afraid of any market cycle, because as long as people need a roof over their head, there's going to be deals to be done. Yeah, that might mean I have to go to another city. That's fine. There's still deals to be done. But the great thing is that if it's a new strategy that I know nothing about, I probably know somebody that knows a lot about it. And I know I'm resourceful enough that I can bring that person value one way or another. Even if now I got to go and say, knock on people's door to generate leads, I'm more than willing to do it. You understand? Like, I have no pride in I'm too good for this or too good for that. I'm too good, for not a damn thing. I need to take care of my family. You understand? And I'll do whatever that means.
I couldn't agree more. I'm interested because I would say this is the thing that everybody asks the most, and I probably don't cover it enough. What are your tips and strategies for obtaining property? Which the other stuff is execution stuff. How do you source deals in a competitive market? But more importantly, just how do you source deals for the rest of your life?
So the biggest thing that we are more focused on as far as the rest of our life kind of thing is our brand. So that is one thing that I've been working on very diligently, is letting as many people know of who we are and what we do. Because the more people that know me, the more people that know our business, know what we do, the more chances I have of having deals consistently. And that's kind of how our deal flow even happens now. We get deals literally from everywhere, from this investor, that wholesaler, this realtor, a neighbor, a contractor. We get deals from everywhere because everybody knows about us. Everybody knows what it is that we do, how we work. People like working with us because we are so focused on relationship building that anybody can trust working with us, right? And that's something that we focused on very, very early on, is building relationships, leaving meat on the bone. That now we own 12 rentals. And like I said, we have new builds, everything. We're controlling a little bit over $5 million. None of these deals, nothing that we're in, have we spent a penny of our own dollars in.
So hold on. I knew this was coming. Say that one more time and say it slowly and loudly, because I'm tired of talking about you need money to invest in real estate. So say it again.
Well, exactly. So everybody that thinks that they need money to invest in real estate is, again, thinking very small. They're thinking very greedy. I need 100% of everything. We believe in partnering. We believe in leaving meat on the bone and working with as many people as we can. So again, we are controlling right now a little bit over $5 million. And I think I'm actually being very conservative, but let's call it around $5 million of real estate with none of our own money. And we've done a ton of deals, a ton of flips, everything, all of the flips, every deal that we've done, even the new construction, all of it with not a dime out of our own pocket, because we worked so hard at the beginning to build relationships that people, we are borrowing money from investors that used to buy from us 5 years ago. Right. And they still work with us because we proved to them that we knew what we were doing. We proved to them that they can trust us. They can trust the way we operate. And it became easier for them to lend to us than have to go through all the hassles that we go through. And they recommend, I use all private funds. I've never used hard money, never used a bank loan, nothing. I use all private funds. That's a private individual that's found us through social media, through another friend, and they're lending money to us. And it's just been because I was always willing to leave money on the table. You know, there's so many times that we would get calls from our buyers saying, man, you know, you told me that I was going to make 20 on this, and I ended up making like 28, 29, or 30 something. I'm like, wow, that's great. That person, anytime I call them, they were there. They were always closing. They were always buying. You know, and right now our money lenders, I can text our money lender like we did before, and we're like, hey, we need 280 grand to build a house. And she was like, okay, by when do you need it? You know, no, well, what are the numbers? What is this? What is that? It's just, and it's not because, oh, we're so cool. Or no, we spent so much time building this relationship, and that meant leaving money on the table.
Well, I was saying this to somebody the other day who invests in large scale multifamily who lives here in Austin. I love him and his wife so much. I would literally give them $300,000 and I don't even care what the deal is, because that's the brand and that's who they are as people and the time I've spent with them. My question to everybody out there is, are you a brand that can execute that way? Right. And what's interesting, and I'll tell a story just for me, right? And it matters to me. It didn't mean the deal went through, but it just mattered to me. But right before COVID, I had a 3,000 square foot house that we were going to build because I've been trying to get in the new construction space. I needed 60 grand. I literally spent 4 days putting this pitch together with the numbers, all this stuff. And I reached out to a friend and I met him in person. And I was nervous as shit. And I started sliding the papers to him and he was like, how much you need? I was like, 60 grand. He's like, done. And he's like, I was like, you don't want to see it? And he's like, no, I'm investing in you. And that's when the light bulb went off. Yeah. When you create those win-wins and you keep doing it over and over again, the deals get easier and easier because I know you're me, right? And you would rather die than lose somebody's money. I'm dead serious because I'll make you whole, even if the deal goes bad. It might take me 6 months. It might take me a year, but I'm going to do right by my investors. And I promise you, it's going to serve me over my years.
And that's something that we don't like pitching this, right? Because I don't know. It seems like you should be careful when somebody says that. But John and I, we have a thing that we both agree on, that it hasn't happened by any stretch of the imagination. But if at any point one of our investors was to lose money with us, even if we couldn't at the moment, I would do anything and everything I possibly could to make sure I get that money right back to them. And I've said this to people and people say to me, that's stupid. They know that they're taking a risk. Real estate is risky. They know what risk they're getting into. I'm like, it's not that. It's that they took a risk on me, not the real estate. And I failed them. You understand? And I just can't have somebody have a bad taste in their mouth when they say my name, and that's just my thing. That is just something that I take a lot of pride in my name because it's all I have. Like I said, I came as an immigrant, right? Like a legit immigrant. I couldn't work. I couldn't drive legally. until like my early 20s. So I didn't have a lot of the benefits and all these privileges that, you know, if you're an American, you're born with. And all I had to my name was just my name. People knew who I was and that they can count on me. And that was my only worth, right? Because I couldn't show you a social security number, at least not a real one. I couldn't show you, you know, any of these things that give a lot of people, I guess, credibility before. I didn't have a credit score until like 5 years ago, you know? So these are things that through those years, I realized like all you have is your name. Money comes and goes. All that shit comes and goes. But the one thing that will be difficult to rebuild is your name. So I take care of that with all of my heart and all of my passion, you know, and the same way, kind of like bringing it back into just basic real estate, but the same way that you raise money that way is how you negotiate deals. You know, when people say, how do you negotiate? What numbers do you use? I'm like, you're asking all the wrong questions. When I speak to sellers, I'm not negotiating. I'm building rapport. I'm using empathy to understand where they're coming from, to understand their struggles, their pain, how to bring them the best solution available. And that comes across. And then it gets to a point where by the time we actually end up talking numbers, it just doesn't even matter. They're sold. It doesn't matter what I offer them. They believe that I'm going to be able to help them.
So, dude, we had this guy on who's been in sales for 25 years, great entrepreneur. And he said something that's kind of stuck with me. He said, all sales is the transfer of belief. You know, and it's like, it's so simple, right? But it really is the transfer of the belief. How do you believe in what you're selling? Like, do you believe in what you're doing? And if that's the case, then that end buyer or that person or that, you know what, even that employee, right, is going to buy into that vision. And so, you know, is there anything, I don't want to get him riled up, guys, because he's like a bull in a china shop, but I'm going to let you go here for a minute. Is there, and this is my podcast, I cuss more than life itself. We talk about everything. So you're not going to scare them off. Is there anything that you've been holding in for, you know, the last couple of months or years that you want to get out kind of back as a PSA to all the investors or entrepreneurs or anything that's just been driving you crazy?
Oh, fuck. Man, where to start? Shit. That honestly caught me off guard. Yeah. I was not planning on ranting or anything.
I gave the space to Adrian on his podcast. So
yeah. What's been pissing me off with people? I believe the biggest thing is the lack of respect. They don't respect the business. They don't respect investors. They don't respect sellers. They don't respect anybody that they do business with. And that annoys the shit out of me because, you know, it's just business as usual. Let's get that, especially it's mostly with wholesalers, right? More than anything, because they're the ones that are always hurting for money, always going for that easy buck. And without any care in the world on, are you screwing over the seller? Are you screwing over the buyer? And I always hear the same shit from people. It's like, well, you know, it's on them. They got to do the research. They got to do this shit. It's like, yes, okay. But doing what's right is always the right thing to do. And if you know better, you should do better. Right. And these are the things that piss me off when somebody's saying like, yeah, I know that's fucked up, but you know, I need that money. And it's like, nothing annoys me more because real estate investors have gotten such a bad name where I go to a lot of places and people say, what do you do? And I'm like, I could say real estate investor, but I hesitate. And I'm like, well, you know, I renovate houses. I own rentals. I'm building a few homes. Oh, so you're a real estate investor. I'm like, hi, yes, just not one of these piece of shit ones that you hear about all the time. These Facebook famous real estate investors that are always going around like, oh, look at my $40,000 check. The fuck does that mean? I have the title company wire that shit to my account. Why the fuck do I want a check for? Like, you're being a douchebag just so you can look cool on social media, you know? And it's like, those are the shit that annoy me because you show people like, man, this guy's killing it, or this girl's killing it. Look at that check. What am I doing wrong? Where am I screwing up? And it's like, you don't know their truth. Most of these people are complete bullshit. You know, and most of them, it's like, yeah, they're showing you a $40,000 check, but that's probably being split between like 7-8 other people. You know, it's probably the only $40,000 check that they've gotten in I don't know how long. I mean, there's a million things in the middle that you just don't know. And they're over here flaunting, showing off, doing all this shit where it's like, I don't give a damn about the 40 grand. Why don't you show how you did the deal, how you found the deal, how you negotiated it? You know, did you fuck over a buyer on that one? I'm pretty sure you did. You know, so it's like, those are the things that annoy me. And it's been annoying me with social media, because then I get a lot of people that reach out and they want, you know, schedule consultation or something. And they start telling me what they want to do. And now I'm already seeing like, all right, first thing, get off of Facebook, because your expectations are unrealistic, you know, and I know where you're getting them from.
Yeah.
So it's like, get off of Facebook. That shit is not real. Everybody's their own PR agency. They're only going to put out all the good. They don't share any of the bad. They don't share any of the losses. You know, they only share the wins. So get off of that and focus on yourself. And this is something that I don't know if you know the guy Jordan Peterson, but yes. he wrote a book, and in it he talks about, he says, the only person you need to compare yourself to is who you were yesterday. That's it. Compare yourself to who you were yesterday. And this is not to say that you can't learn things from your competition or from other people. I learn shit from everybody all the time. I have a very strong belief that, you know, the broken clock is right twice a day, where even the dumbest fucking person can still give me a great idea. So I don't have that ego that I go around saying I know everything. You know, to me, I'm always willing to learn. So, but learn. Then I compare myself to what I did yesterday, not to what they're doing, because I don't know their truth. You know, so it's been a lot of that. It's been a lot of the flaunting, not respecting the business, not respecting the industry. I hate when they like disrespect contractors and try to screw contractors over, because it's already hard to find decent ones. And the few decent ones, you're screwing them over. And then when they go to work for a decent investor, now it's all this, well, I got to protect myself. Well, I got to protect myself. And it's all this tension where it's like, it could have been probably a great partnership. Yet there's all this tension because of all these previous issues with bad investors that now makes it much more difficult to work together.
No, I couldn't agree more, guys. That's why we put them in the trust tree. We had to, I know it's been building. I wanted to give them the safe space to get it all out. But if people want to find out more about what you got going on, they got a great podcast, amazing content, putting stuff out all the time. How would they do that?
Just look up An Investor's Journey. Pretty much everywhere. We are on podcasts, Facebook, YouTube. On YouTube, we go put a live video every Friday. We do Coffee with the Johns, where we actually sit down with my business partner and we go over all of the headlines, all of the trends that are happening in the market, new policies, and how does that affect real estate? How does that affect your business? Because that's how you understand where to go and where to live, where to invest, is based on how people are moving. And we drop a new video every Wednesday, and that could be an interview that I'm doing, or it could be a training video that I'm teaching how to fix and flip, how to buy and hold, the BRRRR strategy, wholesale. Everything that we talk about is only things that we've done. So, you're not going to see any videos on Airbnb because we haven't done Airbnb, at least yet. When we do, you'll start seeing Airbnb videos, right? So every video you see on there is exactly about what we've done, what's worked and hasn't worked. So yeah, an investor's journey.
I love it. Guys, if you like this episode, make sure you send it out to your friends, rate us and review us, send us out to your friends, and we'll see you next time.
All right.
Thank you for listening to Construct Your Life with Austin Linney. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to rate, review, subscribe, and pay it forward by sharing with a friend. Most importantly, take this opportunity to start constructing your life by taking immediate action on what you learned. For show notes, resources, and more information on one-on-one coaching with Austin, visit constructyourlifepodcast.com.